Hello and welcome to Convict Inc. I'm your host, Robert Rosso. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please do so. If you like this video, please push like and share with your family, friends, neighbors, enemies, etc. Been one of those days. Wife broke down this morning on going to work. Had to get the car towed, had to go find a place to get the vehicle fixed, have to go look for a vehicle, and just on and on and on. I can go on. Anyway, that's life, right? At least I'm free. Today, I'm going to go ahead and shoot this in the car as I'm going to pick Marta up, and I'm going to talk about cell rotations. So, I think it was in 2012, there was an escape at the Metropolitan Center in Chicago. Some guys tied some blankets together, sheets, made a rope. I think they dropped out of a 17-story building. I mean, they really went hard. Anyway, following that escape attempt or that escape, the Bureau of Prisons either implemented or started enforcing a policy, and that is, in general population, every 6 months, all inmates in general population cells are supposed to rotate cells. Now, how those cells are rotated totally depends on staff. For example, if I'm in cell 19, they might just move us one cell up to cell 20, and so on. Or they do some crazy stuff. It just depends, like I said, on the administration. I had one administration there was one administration in Terre Haute. I think it was in 2013 or 14. My counselor name was Miss Gerke. She was special, but it wasn't her. But anyway, they came up with this system where they just started banging people all over it was nuts. Anyway, so this is basically what it comes down to. Let me go back. In the special housing units, or SHU, I believe since for years now, they're supposed to move every 14 or 21 days. And the theory is if a guy's in a cell for a long time, they can make holes in the cell, break the glass. You know, you get to know a cell. You're in there 23 hours a day. You get bored. You start doing weird stuff in the cell, breaking the walls, whatever. And it's true. And guys actually can carve knives out of the metal bunk beds. They're less likely to do so. They're less likely to do so if they're cell rotations, especially if staff does it right, and after somebody leaves the cell, they actually go in and check the cell. But that doesn't happen very often. Usually they just have a rotation. Staff's lazy, they want to get through the process, and they don't go in there and actually look at the walls or the bunks and all that stuff. So when I was at Leavenworth and I started doing a bunch of SHU time, so let's say I was there 5 years, half the time I was in the SHU. Certain administrations would do cell rotations, but most of the time they didn't, and they damn sure didn't follow the 21-day policy. Maybe Warden Mickey Ray tried to push it for a while, but then the guys that work the special housing unit, the staff, usually it's a crew that stays and works the special housing unit, and they kind of push back against the executive staff, and they kind of run things how they want. Not always, but they generally do. So they know that they get kind of tired of the cell rotations. It's a hassle. Everybody has to pack up all their stuff. They then have to rotate cells. And let me tell you something. So it might not seem like a big deal, but when you are in the let's say the SHU, for example, right? You start accumulating a lot of stuff. So let's say I get newspapers every day. If I get newspapers for 2 weeks, I can make a bench out of that. I can tear off strips of sheets, tie it, and actually make a nice little seat for myself. Now, is that supposed to happen? No, that's considered contraband. You're only supposed to have limited items when you're in the SHU. But when you're in the SHU, again, especially the older SHUs like Leavenworth, Atlanta, Lewisburg, Lompoc, the staff really don't care, as long as you're not killing each other, right? And if you kill each other in your own cell, they didn't care sometimes about that either. Damn sure didn't care if we made wine most of the time. So it's little things. It's hanging clotheslines up. Clotheslines are tearing strips of sheets apart, making lines so you can hang towels up, so you can hang your clothes up, making curtains so you can block the light out, making shower curtains, using spoons I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you can do. We made heavy bags in the shoe, punching bags in the shoe. You know, that's a whole different issue about staff being lazy, but when you do cell rotations, it's really a pain in the ass. Now let's enter the compound. Like I said, after there was an escape attempt in Chicago, MDC or MCC Chicago, whatever it is, the Bureau of Prisons nationwide put out the policy or started enforcing the policy. There had to be cell rotations every X amount of time. I think it may be the warden's discretion, maybe 90 days, maybe 6 months, but 6 months was what they tried to do at Terre Haute during some administration. Some of them didn't give a damn. So FCI Terre Haute, where I was housed, is an old prison. In old prisons, cells are genuinely smaller. The conditions of the cells, you know, you got center block that's falling apart. The screens are rusted. The bars on the screens are rusted. They're old conditions. So they let you get away with doing a lot of stuff like fixing up the cells. For example, I used to paint every cell I went to. I immediately painted, and I would wax the floor. Now the floors are concrete. You know, supposed to be cement. Not supposed to wax it, but I would usually paint it. I would paint it blue or white, and then put layers upon layers upon layers of wax that we would get from safety. That wax was usually for the gymnasium floors, for the hallways. They did wax the hallways, so we would, you know, the guys that worked safety would, that was their hustle, get the wax and sell it to the dudes in the blocks. Some wardens pushed back, some executive staff pushed back, and they'd make us either strip the floors, move the cells, but we would hook our cells up. I mean, I actually customized my cells. I would have desks put in. They took desks out a long time ago. I would have like metal, well, they used to go on the lockers. On the side of the lockers were these metal tables, and they would lay flat, and then when you would want to write or something, you put up, and there's a little stand on the back. Well, I got one of these off the lockers, and I bolted it to the wall, and I had a nice little table I can write at the wall, on the back of my wall. I'm trying to think of other stuff I did. Then I started customizing. People would customize their paint, their cells with different kind of paint. I would do like square blocks, like a blue white checkers. There's guys that put checkerboards on the floor, Pac-Man on the floor. So you spend a lot of time and money, cost a lot of money to do that, and then you hook up a cell, and then in 6 months they tell you to rotate. It's really a drag. It's really a pain in the ass. When in 2018 they opened, they closed down M Unit, and they so-called remodeled it. Remodeling it just means they painted the outside. The inside of the cells were a mess. They were just roaches and mice everywhere. So they let us customize our own cells. And the deal was, you know, they were going to let us stay in those cells for a year and not do cell rotations. When you first move in, or they're trying to open up a block, or they're trying to get inmates to do something, staff will genuinely overpromise. Get you in there, and then you're just like, okay, move in 6 months. So they did that to us in M Block in 6 months, and there was a lot of people that were upset. And I should say that the counselors, most of the counselors hate cell rotations as well. It's a pain in the ass for them. Then you got guys that have TV cells. For example, I always had a TV cell. My cell was like right on top of the TV so I can run the TV, okay? That's the truth. So then let's say they moved me one cell forward, and I'm on top of the TV. Now I'm behind the TV, or the white TV, and I can't see. So now that poses a whole different problem. If I'm so-called running the white TV, and a lot of times guys want one person to run the TV, and then that opens a door for other people to run the TV, or a different race. So for example, if they moved me from cell 60 to cell 59 and 59 was behind the white TV, now you got a guy that's black guy that moves into cell 60 that's on top of what was the white TV. Of course, he's going to want to watch that TV, especially after lockdown. He'll get a remote, because you can get remote. You can buy remotes on the black market. And then all of a sudden at 10 o'clock at night, when you're watching a program, the TV will change and it'll go on like BET or, you know, some black shows. And that was a whole other big problem. And that all stemmed from cell rotations. So some of the wiser counselors, the old school counselors, would let us pick, if we were forced to do cell rotations, we then got to pick how we wanted to rotate the cells. And that's usually was the best way for them to do it. Again, especially in old prisons, where if I let's say I hooked up my cell and I painted it and I remodeled and I made a really nice cell, I bug-proofed it the best as possible, and that means that all the little holes in the walls where the cockroaches come running out of, and there's millions, I plugged them up, and you can't just do that in a day. It takes, you know, weeks to get something like that done. Put glue in. I mean, you know, there's really ways of hooking up these cells. Well, let's say I hook up my cell. Now they want to move me to a cell where somebody that's a short timer or just doesn't give a damn. Now I'm in a roach pit, because even though there's roaches all over the place, you can kind of keep roaches, you know, out of your cells as best as possible, especially if you put bleach around the door at night, and there's all these little tricks. Can't keep them all out, but you can keep a lot of them out. So during COVID, Warden Lammer lightened up on cell rotations. And in the beginning, he said he wasn't going to do it. A year went by. All of a sudden, they made an announcement that there was going to be cell rotations. And inmates went freaking crazy. Now, again, during COVID, they had safety could not spray the cell blocks. So the cell blocks were infested. I'm talking, there's so many. When my neighbor moved, my neighbor, names were Dean and Randy, moved out of a cell, 2 cells up from me. There were not hundreds, like thousands of roaches. If I peeled the paint off the wall, roaches would come running out of this cell. And then the roaches would scatter. They go on the tiers. They go, you know, into other cells, scurry into other cells. So during COVID, if you had guys that were like nasty or didn't care, and now they got these roach-infested cells, and now you're telling us to move, and you're putting guys in these roach-infested cells when you cannot get bug spray because safety wouldn't allow it with closed quarters. In order to spray for bugs, you got to be out of the block. They come in. They wouldn't do it during COVID. So you had this infestation of mice and especially roaches. So guys went crazy. They started bucking. We refused to eat meals. They gave us sack lunches, and we, you know, pushed back, and it actually worked for a minute. And then we got a memo that said we must do cell rotations. And I got out April 13th, 2021 is when I was given compassionate release. And the truth is, I was part of the crew that was pushing back, and I was the white rep and pushing back and saying, we're not going to move cells. Finally, they're like, we're going to come and force you guys. We're going to come one by one, and we're going to take you out of the cell, strip all your property. You're going to lose all your stuff, and we're going to do it. And they were going to do it. So us, the reps got together, the guys with influence got together, and we finally came to some kind of negotiation where we get to pick our own cells, where we're going to rotate, and the staff allowed us to do so. And it worked out pretty good. Of course, there's some people that were upset. I was always on top of the white TV. I moved across so I can still be on top of the white TV, but I had a remote so I can run it from across the range. And that's what happened. But I immediately invested a lot of money in paint and wax, and began hooking up the cell. A part of me didn't want to, in case I was let out on compassionate release. I did have my motion pending. But psychologically, I kept telling myself, if I do that, if I don't act like I'm going to be here, you know, like I have hope of going home, then it's not going to happen, you know. So I invested quite a bit. When I say quite a bit, you know, I'm talking a couple $100 worth of wax and paint. I'm trying to think of the screen. Yeah, so Man, some of those cells, the screens are coming off the back. You know, I'm not saying it's at a security threat per se, but you got bugs that can fly in from outside, so you want to screen, because it's open bars, you want to screen that guards bugs from flying in the summertime and stuff like that. So I had to pay for a screen. But I'm going to go ahead and post the cell rotation memo on the community page when I post this video. But yeah, so you know what else? So like when you have your own cell, you customize, you put hooks where you want to. You put coat hangers. I had coat racks. The little metal desks, like I said. Some guys bolted their lockers to the wall. Then they made it mandatory to bolt lockers to your wall. And let me tell you, in M Block, or in most of the blocks during COVID, if you bolted the lockers to the walls, then you had a place for roaches to stay, live, and thrive. So it was really a bitch to have the lockers bolted to the walls. I like the lockers bolted to the walls. They put new lockers in. That's why they made it mandatory, because the lockers were in poor condition. They made it mandatory for guys to have their lockers bolted. But again, that was during COVID, when it was just a roach infestation, and it was horrible. So, but yeah, cell rotations suck in old joints where you customize cells. And again, no, they're not supposed to allow you to do it, but they're not supposed to allow you to do a lot of things. They want guys to be as comfortable as possible. When you're talking about stuff like hooking up a cell, painting it, putting some extra coat hangers or shelves, even shelves, got metal shelves that you can buy extra. And especially guys that were on drugs would trade their shelves and their hooks and trade everything for drugs, or for money to get drugs. You can really hook up a nice cell. And that's just the way it is in prison, especially the old prisons. In the newer prisons, no, there's no need for anything like that, because the cells are newer, and it's all pretty much uniform. You know, the conditions inside the cell blocks aren't deteriorating as much as they are in the older prisons. So that's about it. Cell rotations. Cell rotations are a nightmare, cause a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. People get in fights. People refuse to move and go to the hole. Just a lot of chaos. But again, they do it because if you're in a cell for a long period of time and you get familiar, you can start carving bricks out of the wall and escape. And quite frankly, at Lewisburg, I did remove a center block out of my wall, but I wasn't doing it to escape. I was doing it to put contraband in. So I get why they do cell rotations. Take care.